What's up guys, my name's Doug. I've been a certified nutritionist for the last 5 years, and in today's video, I'm going to explain to you why I want you to eat more carbohydrates. So hopefully we've already gotten off on the right foot, and that is good news to you. And I have to be completely honest, this video is inspired by two people in particular, but to protect their identities, I'm going to change their names. One person who it's inspired by is a client of mine. Let's call him Greg. He has been working super hard on his program the last few weeks, and he's doing everything right, but he hasn't already started to see the progress and the results when it comes to looking at the weight scales, when he stands on the scales and weighs himself. So he was considering going keto, dropping the carbohydrates basically. It's also inspired this video by a woman who I had a chat with in the gym the other day. Let's call her Anna. Anna said she wanted to cut out carbs to lose what she described as excess weight. The reality is though, this video is inspired by those two people in particular, but there are thousands, if not millions of Gregs and Annas out there all over the world who are just incredibly frustrated. They feel like they're doing everything, they know what they want, but what if they feel like whatever they try, they're just not getting the result that they think they deserve. And it can be incredibly frustrating, demoralizing, even defeating for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people then assume that the holy grail, the thing that they've all been avoiding, is to cut out the carbohydrates. That's the necessary evil that they must do for the rest of their lives. They associate themselves with some kind of genetic disorder or DNA mutation. They think that it's all about them and that they have the problem, or they are the problem. But the reality is, guys, is that carbs are not the enemy. Carbs are actually no more fattening than protein. For every 1 gram of carbohydrates, it's 4 calories. And for every 1 gram of protein, it's also 4 calories. So they are equally as fattening as one another. Carbohydrates are also your body's preferred source of energy. And the fact of the matter is, if you starve your body of carbohydrates for a couple of weeks, you will lose a significant amount of weight in that time. But what you're losing isn't body fat, it's literally water weight. And I'm going to explain that to you today, but I'm also going to explain to you why I want you to be eating more carbohydrates, because it's all well and good me just kind of barging in here and jumping on your screens and saying, eat more carbs. But I've always found in the 5 years that I've been doing this, that if I actually sit down and take the time to explain to you the logic behind it and why I want you to do it, you can attach some rationale behind it. Because this is quite a triggering thing for a lot of people. Eat more carbs? I thought I had to eat less carbs. So if I really sit down, take the time, and if you listen to this, hopefully we can get to a point where you understand it, you believe it, you can leave this video with some real value, okay? So let's get stuck into it. So as I said, the fact of the matter is, if you do starve yourself of carbohydrates for a couple of weeks, you will see pretty drastic weight loss. Now, the amount of weight you lose is going to be proportionate to your start point. So the heavier you are, the more drastic the weight loss in terms of the actual number of pounds or kilos that you lose in that first couple of weeks. Let's say you're a 100 kilo man versus a 50 kilo woman. The 50 kilo woman may lose 1 kilo, maybe 2 kilos in those 2 weeks. The 100 kilo man could lose 5 kilos, but proportionately by percentage, they're probably gonna lose about the same amount of body weight. But again, I really wanna emphasize, there's a big difference between body weight and body fat. And when you drop the carbohydrates, you may be losing a little bit of body fat. You will be, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But the vast majority of the weight that you've lost is that sort of acute water weight loss. And what's happened there is because carbohydrates are digested and turned into what we call glucose. It's a simple sugar in our bodies, okay? The glucose that we do not need, that our cells do not need in the immediate, right, in the here and now, is stored by your body as glycogen. Glycogen bonds with water, and it can bond with quite a lot of water. For every 1 gram of glycogen, it can bond with 3 grams of water. And you can store a lot of glycogen, so that means you can store 3 times the amount of water. But here's what happens, right? If you don't consume carbohydrates, you don't consume any glucose. So your body starts to use up that stored glucose, that glycogen. And as a result of that, your body now has the inability to hold on to as much water. So as you lose the glycogen, you lose the water weight. And for the first couple of weeks, like I say, you feel amazing because you feel motivated. You jump on the scales after 2 days and you're like, oh my God, it's working. Finally, this is it. I found the answer. And then after a week, you've lost some more and you're like, ah. By 2 weeks, you're like, ah, this is it. I'm going to be skinny. But then after 3 weeks, you jump on the scales and you realize that the weight loss has slowed or maybe even plateaued. Or maybe even the weight has started to go back up again. This is very common. And I think what tends to happen is people get a little bit ahead of themselves. They think they've figured it all out. And then in that 3rd week, they kind of start to cheat the system a little bit. They go, oh, well, I'm losing weight, so I'll just have that as well. And I'll have this as well, and I'll have this as well, this as well. What's happened is that your body has got to a point where it basically just doesn't have any more glycogen to lose. And so it doesn't have much water weight to store onto. As a short-term tactic, if you were a UFC fighter or a boxer, this could be a valid way of losing body weight so that you could make a weight. But let's assume you're not a UFC fighter or a professional boxer stepping into the ring. You don't need to do this. And yes, it might give you that sort of instant gratification of being lighter on the scales, but when it comes to your long-term health, doing this isn't going to make you feel any better. In fact, I would argue it's probably going to make you feel worse, and it's going to destroy your relationship with food, and in particular carbohydrates, which, as I said, is your body's preferred source of energy. So I wanted to start there to kind of explain to you why, if you go on a bit of a carb crash diet, you do experience some initial weight loss, and why it also then plateaus. If you've experienced that, then leave me a comment, let me know your experience of that. I really want to understand that, because it's good to hear like real life scenarios, if you know what I mean, because then it gives me more ideas of how I can help you guys, and that's literally why I'm creating this content. So now we've established what happens when you go on a carb crash diet. What I then want to do is kind of explain to you why I actually want you to eat more carbohydrates. But before we get into that, I just need to quickly clarify with you, and some of you may already know this, some of you may not, the actual way to lose body fat. Because that's what we're really interested in. We're not really interested in losing body weight, because I don't know if you know this, but your body weight is literally just the amount of the gravitational pull you have to this planet. That's it. That really is it. It's it's been glorified, I suppose, as some kind of way of measuring someone's value. And people who are 70 kilos think they're not as good as people who weigh 65 kilos, all right? And it's just complete BS. It's not true whatsoever. It is literally your gravitational pull to this planet. That is it. The fact of the matter is there are people who, if you look at them on the scales, they are, in a good, healthy weight range, but they're actually very chronically unhealthy because of their dietary lifestyle choices. So yeah, of course, weight is one metric of measuring someone's health, but it is only one of many. And if you want to improve your body composition, you might want to lose a little bit of weight, but you also probably want to increase your muscle mass, or gain a little bit of lean muscle. We're not talking about getting jacked and turning into bodybuilders here. We're just talking about increasing our lean muscle mass, because that actually makes us healthier human beings. And what you're really after is a change in your body composition, not really a change in your body weight. I've worked with a lot of people, men and women in the past, who have they feel like they've lost weight, but the reality is their weight has pretty much stayed the same, but their body composition, how they look, has drastically changed. Okay, so the way to lose body fat is to create what we call a caloric deficit. Now, you might have heard of this, but let's assume you haven't. I'm going to break it down very quickly for you. So a caloric deficit is where you are consuming fewer calories than you are burning. And to calculate your caloric deficit, what we need to do is calculate what we call your maintenance calories, which is the number of calories you burn in any given day. And this is based on your physiology, so your age, your weight, your height, your sex, and your lifestyle. So a very rudimentary equation we can use to calculate your maintenance calories is to take your body weight in pounds, not in kilos, in pounds, and multiply it by 15. It's rough and ready. It's not an exact science. It's not the best equation. It's not the one I use with my clients. We use a bit more of an advanced one with my clients, but it will get you off to a good start. Then what you want to do is consume fewer than that, and you want to do it consistently. Now, you may be thinking, okay, great, that sounds simple enough. How much fewer do I consume? Well, if you create a 500 calorie deficit every single day for 1 week, you're going to have created a 3,500 calorie deficit. It's 500 multiplied by 7. And that also happens to the amount of calories that are in 1 pound of body fat. So people will talk about consuming a 500 calorie deficit per day because it gives them a nice sort of round number to aim for, and it means that they're on track to lose about 1 pound of body fat per week. Now, it's important to say at this stage that that doesn't necessarily mean that lost pound in body fat is going to be reflected on the scales. Some weeks you might lose 2 pounds on the scales. Some weeks you might gain 1. Some weeks your scales might stay the same, because again, your body weight is largely made up of how much water you've got in your body, how hydrated you are, when you last went to the toilet for number 1, or number 2, by the way, when you last ate, what you last ate, even how stressed you are, and for the women out there as well, time of the month. So there are plenty of factors that are going to influence your weight, which is why I say to people, don't necessarily rely solely on the scales to measure your progress. They are one metric, one way of measuring your progress. Okay, so that's how you actually lose body fat. So why do I want you to eat more carbohydrates? Well, very simple, really, if you think about it logically. Carbohydrates are our body's preferred source of energy. And if we want you to create a calorie deficit, there's 2 levers we can pull on. There's the consume fewer calories, but that's not that fun, is it? Like eating less, I don't really like the sounds of that. Or there's doing more. Because if you think about it, if this is your maintenance calories, you can create the deficit by eating less, or you can create the deficit by doing more. Or I should maybe do this, doing more. And what you're doing there is you're still creating that deficit. And I think a better way to do it is to create a little bit of a deficit, eat a little bit less, but actually do a little bit more. And because carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of fuel, you will find if you consume more carbohydrates for 2 to 3 days, you will just be itching to get up, to go out, and to do stuff. You won't want to sit in front of the TV and do nothing. Whereas if you are severely restricting yourself from carbohydrates, if you're in a very deep calorie deficit, a very big calorie deficit, you will just not have as much energy. Your brain is very intelligent. It hates change. It likes what we call homeostasis, which means staying the same. So any kind of change it senses, it will start to shut down little parts of your body that it thinks you don't really need. It will make you lethargic. It will make you feel a bit lazy and slow, and you'll lose your drive, you'll lose your vitality. And we don't really want that. You know, you've got a busy life, you've probably got a busy job, maybe you're a parent to young kids. You don't want to feel worse, you want to feel better, but you also want to lose weight. And the best way to do this is, yes, absolutely, to create that calorie deficit, but to do it in a way where, yeah, you're mindful of what you eat, you're tracking your calories now using MyFitnessPal, it's a free app, but you're also doing a bit more. And if you're consuming more carbohydrates, you're going to have more energy, quite literally. It's like putting more petrol into a car. You will want to go and do more. You will want to get up and go for a walk. You will want to go for a run. You will want to go to the gym. You will want to socialize with your friends. You will want to have fun with your partner. You will want to play with your kids. You will want to work harder. There is literally nothing bad to say about it. Where people go wrong is they gorge on carbohydrates. They gorge on the candy, the sweets, the chocolate, rather than consuming the carbohydrates that are a little bit lower on the glycemic index and a little bit, quote unquote, healthier. So carbohydrates shouldn't be demonized, guys. They're incredibly valuable. They are literally your body's preferred source of energy. As I've said maybe about 6 times in this video now. But just to give you a little bit of a gauge on how I use this with my clients, most of my clients are consuming, of all of their total calories, 40 to 60% of them are coming from carbohydrates. 40 to 60%. So let's just take the average there, 50%. So half of my clients' food, half, is coming from carbohydrates. I think a lot of people think that when they start working with a personal trainer or a nutritionist, that person's gonna say, right, no more carbs, no more fun, you now have no life, you're basically joining the Navy SEALs and this is gonna suck. It couldn't be further from the truth. Our job, or at least my job, I can't speak for everybody, is to make you feel healthier, make you feel happier, make you feel like you live a more fulfilled life, to give you more energy, more drive, more vitality. And me taking away your carbohydrates is A, gonna make you hate me and resent me, and B, it's gonna take away from your drive, vitality, focus, productivity, and all these other things. And let's be real as well. Yeah, you can do a crash carb diet for 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but then you just give up. And then you just put it all back on. And then guess what happens? You just feel even worse about yourself. The last thing I want to say to you guys is that there is actually a process that happens in your liver, which if you don't give yourself glucose, if you don't feed yourself glucose, your liver can literally create it itself. So when people starve themselves of carbohydrates, it is somewhat pointless, because eventually your body will start to allow this process to kick in. It's called gluconeogenesis, and it sounds very complicated, but if you reverse the word, so Genesis, neo, gluco, you'll make more sense of it. So Genesis, creation, neo, new, gluco, glucose. So it's the creation of new glucose, and it happens in your liver. And what it does, what your body does, is it uses the food that you are eating. So if you're not eating carbs, you must be eating protein and fat, because those are the 3 macronutrients. And it breaks those down and converts them into glucose. Now this is very bad, because what it also means is that your body isn't using the dietary fat and the protein that you've eaten for its real job. You know, your dietary fat is primarily to support your endocrine system, your hormonal health, and your protein is designed to help you repair and recover at a cellular level. People think about it from a muscular function, and yes, it's very important for muscular health, but it's just as important as it is for all your cells' health, whether it's your hair, your nails, your skin, everything, your organs, absolutely everything. So if you're not consuming carbohydrates, you're actually, again, adding more detriment to your health. So yes, crash course carbohydrate crash diets can be a great little Kickstarter, just to kind of get you the ball rolling, as long as you're armed with all of this knowledge. I would never really advise anybody to do it longer for 10 days. I wouldn't advise you to do it at all, to be honest. But if you're absolutely hell set on it, cool. Lose your 3, 4, 5 kilos. But go into that with the knowledge that that will stop, and after a while, you're going to need to up your carbohydrates, which is going to come with a little bit of a weight increase, and that's absolutely fine. But then you've built the habits, you've built the momentum, and you can keep going. So hopefully, guys, that is a pretty comprehensive view as to why I want you to actually eat more carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not bad. Carbohydrates are not fattening. Carbohydrates are your body's preferred source of energy. We might as well say it 7 times. But I really hope this video was useful. If it was, guys, I would massively appreciate your support. Give the video a little thumbs up. Costs you nothing, takes you 1 second. And if you have enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. I'm actually in the process of posting every single day. This is day 112 of me posting on YouTube in a row. So like I say, if you have enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. I've got 111 other videos for you to enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.